Hi everybody, let's get started with today's math lesson. Before we do any work, you need to make sure you have the following items close by because you're going to need them for our lesson. Make sure that you have your math journal and a sharpened pencil. You're also going to need some kind of paper to write on. If you have a whiteboard marker and eraser and would rather use that to do your work than on your scrap paper, that's okay too. If you don't have those items close by and ready to go, you should pause this video now and go find them. Today's math lesson is lesson number 7-2. The topic of our lesson is exploring fraction multiplication situations. The objective for today's math lesson is to be able to multiply unit and non-unit fractions by whole numbers. After I looked at the topic and the objective, I decided that this doesn't sound too hard because really all they're telling us we're going to be doing is multiplying fractions by whole numbers in some kind of a story or situation type setting. And we already learned how to multiply fractions by whole numbers in unit number 7. So I don't think this lesson's going to be too tricky. Let's go ahead and get started. For mental math, you're going to need your scrap paper or whiteboard to write on. The directions for this slide say to decompose each fraction in at least 2 different ways. Remember, to decompose means to break it down into smaller fractions. So why don't you pause the video now and decompose 4/5 into 2 different ways. If you decomposed 4/5 into 2 different ways, you should have written something like this. Maybe 1/5 plus 3/5 equals 4/5. Or 2/5 plus 2/5 equals 4/5. You could have even written it in unit fractions. And it might have looked like this. 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 equals 4/5. All right, let's try one more that's easy. You can pause your video now and decompose the fraction 5/6 into 2 different ways. Then, once you've decomposed, turn the video back on to check your answers. When decomposing the fraction 5/6, you could have written 3/6 plus 2/6 equals 5/6, or 1/6 plus 4/6 equals 5/6. Again, you could have broken this down into unit fractions again, and you could have written 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 equals 5/6. If you had any of those 3 decompositions written down, pat yourself on the back. Let's try one that's a little harder now. Now we have a whole number and a fraction together, or a mixed number. We have the number 2 and 2/3. I want you to pause the video now and decompose 2 and 2/3 into 2 different ways. Once you've decomposed that mixed number, turn your video back on and we'll talk about some possible answers you could have written. If I was going to decompose 2 and 2/3, I probably would have tried to keep it pretty simple. I probably would have written 2 wholes plus 2/3. Or maybe even 1 and 1/3 plus 1 and 1/3. That's another way you could break it down. You might have even said, okay, how about 2 plus 1 plus 2/3? Those, I think, are all probably the easiest ways to decompose 2 and 2/3. If you had any of those written, pat yourself on the back. You did a good job. Now let's check out today's math message. It's a story. It says, the Social Studies Club wants to make papier-mâché globes. To make the paste, each club member will mix 3/4 cup white glue with 1/4 cup water. The club has 9 members. They have 1 quart of water. Is there enough water for everyone? Let's use some of our cube strategy to make sure we know exactly what we're doing. It says in this story that we have, or the club has, 3/4 cup white glue, 1/4 cup of water. There are 9 members in the club, and they have a total of 1 quart of water. The question they want you to answer is there enough water for everyone? So right now, we're just talking about the water. So you can ignore the part here about the white glue. We're just focusing on the water. We know there are 9 members in the club. Each member is going to need 1/4 cup of water for their papier-mâché, and they have a total of 1 quart of water. You need to figure out, is there enough for all 9 members to make their papier-mâché globe? Pause the video now and work this problem out on your own. Once you're done working it out, turn the video back on and we'll discuss the answer. All right, let's check to see if you had the right answer for the math message. Remember, we were trying to figure out if the club had enough water. So let's see if you used one of these strategies to figure it out. Did you maybe use repeated addition? We knew each member needed 1/4 cup of water, and there are 9 members in the club. So you could have taken 1/4 and repeated that addition 9 times. So 1/4 plus 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 1/4 equals 9/4. Or when you turn that 9/4 into a mixed number, it's 2 1/4. So that's telling you they need a total of 9/4 or 2 1/4 cup of water. I want to make a note to myself there that this is cups of water. That's how much they are going to need. Now, you maybe used a different strategy. You might have taken 9 for the 9 members and multiplied that times 1/4. We learned how in Unit 6 that you could multiply a whole number times a fraction. You take the whole number 9, put it over a 1, and then multiply by 1/4. Then you multiply across the top. 9 times 1 is 9, and 1 times 4 is 4. So you get a total of 9/4 or 2 1/4 cup of water. Another way you may have done this same problem or figured it out was draw a picture. My favorite way is to do the multiplication part because it's less writing and I know how to multiply. Now, did we answer the question? Do they have enough water for all members of the group? Well, we know what they have. We know they have 9/4 or 2 1/4 cup of water. That's how much they need. And we read on the previous slide that they have a total of 1 quart. So I'm going to write that up here. Total water, this is what they have, 1 quart. So let's look up here at our gallon drawing. Here's 1 quart, that's what they have, but what they need for all 9 members is 2 1/4 cup. Well, look inside of that cue. Does a cue or a quart contain at least 2 1/4 cup of water? It sure does. A quart contains 1, 2, 3, 4 cups of water. So a quart contains more than 2 1/4 cup of water. So yes, they do have enough water for all 9 members to make a papier-mâché globe.